What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay. So we are looking at Deuteronomy chapter 10. And last chapter was a bit of a, history lesson combined with something else Moses was saying to try and make the point that God isn't giving these people the promised land because they're so good and loyal and faithful or anything like that. In fact, he got into a reason, well, a couple of different examples of why, but a lot about one specific example of the people being rebellious and not obeying God, just as evidence that, no, God's not doing this stuff because they're good people. It's just because he's loyal. And, he made promises to their ancestors. So, and I guess now he's sort of continuing with that particular history lesson pertaining to the golden calf incident at Mount Sinai, which frustrated Moses to the point of breaking the stone tablets that the first copy of the Ten Commandments were written on. So then we get to this in Deuteronomy chapter 10. So here we go. At that time the Lord said to me, "Chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. Also make a wooden ark, a sacred chest to store them in. Come up to me on the mountain, and I will write on the tablets the same words that were on the ones you smashed. Then place the tablets in the ark." So I made an ark of acacia wood and cut 2 stone tablets like the first 2. Then I went up the mountain with the tablets in my hand. Once again the Lord wrote the 10 Commandments on the tablets and gave them to me. They were the same words the Lord had spoken to you from the heart of the fire on the day you were assembled at the foot of the mountain. Then I turned and came down the mountain and placed the tablets in the Ark of the Covenant, which I had made, just as the Lord commanded me. And the tablets are still there in the Ark. This is, of course, as he's recounting these things to the new generation of Israelites. So, yeah, even at that point, I think possibly even now, current day 2023, the Ark of the Covenant and, the stone tablets with the 10 Commandments are still, but then again, they might have gotten destroyed in one of the various, invasions and other kingdoms kind of taking over. But in any case, definitely as he's recounting this to the new generation of Israelites, it's the tablets are right there in the Ark of the Covenant, as we speak, now. So yeah, new tablets were made. The Ark of the Covenant was made to, carry them. Footnote there, 10 Commandments. Hebrew says the 10 words, which it's basically just another way of saying the same thing. Although the Hebrew might have used 10 words kind of almost as a reference back to, the very beginning, where it says, God spoke, aka, used words and created the earth. But that may or may not actually be a reference that was intentional there. I don't know. But in any case, it was definitely not just any 10 words, but the 10 words. These are the 10 things that you most need to know and follow. So yeah. Anyway. Second set of stone tablets did not get broken because the people did not, at least at that point, again, rebel against God. Anyway, then we get to verse 6. The people of Israel set out from the wells of the people of Jachin and traveled to Mosera, where Aaron died and was buried. His son Eleazar ministered as high priest in his place. Then they journeyed to Gudgodah, and from there to Yotbatha, a land with many brooks and streams. At that time the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the Lord's covenant, and to stand before the Lord as his ministers, and to pronounce blessings in his name. These are their duties to this day. That is why the Levites have no share of property or possession of land among the other Israelite tribes. The Lord himself is their special possession, as the Lord your God told them. Okay, seems like a bit of an odd sidebar, and I'm not even totally sure. I mean, hold up. Let me look at the footnote there. Or set out from Beeroth of Beni Jachin. Okay, whatever. I wonder if this is inserted here just as alright, we're keeping the timeline of events. So, like, after Moses said these things up here to the Israelites, then this stuff happened. You know, they did a little bit of traveling here. And then maybe other things were said. I don't know. Because otherwise, this would be in reference to, like, after the whole incident at Sinai, which I don't think Moses would be, like... this description doesn't seem to fit with what happened after, you know, they left Mount Sinai. And why would they be calling it Jachin if it was from Sinai? Like, that makes no sense. So, maybe it was just Moses mentioned the stuff about the new copy of the covenant on the new stone tablets, and then after he mentioned that, they did a little bit of traveling. I don't know. That's what makes the most sense to me. Anywho, and then verse 10. As for me, I stayed on the mountain in the Lord's presence for 40 days and nights, as I had done the first time. And once again the Lord listened to my pleas and agreed not to destroy you. Then the Lord said to me, "Get up and resume the journey, and lead the people to the land I swore to give their ancestors, so they may take possession of it." See, like, if they had done some traveling, but then Moses still wanted to kind of wrap up the thought of, like, oh, yeah, by the way, I kept praying to God for 40 days and nights, and then he said we could go. Like, that's maybe wanting to make sure that it was clear to the people, you know, that, yeah, they had left Mount Sinai after that, and then eventually made their way to where they are now, as Moses is saying these things to the new generation. I don't know. It's a little bit odd, the sequence of events there. But also, like, could be an example of, you know, that God had been leading them through the pillar of cloud by day, fire by night, or whatever, and whenever God told them to move, they moved, no matter what else was going on. But anyway, okay. So, recounting of Sinai events done. And now we get to further words of Moses to the people in verse 12. "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? He requires only that you fear the Lord your God, and live in a way that pleases him, and love him and serve him with all your heart and soul. And you must always obey the Lord's commands and decrees that I am giving you today for your own good. Look, the highest heavens and the earth and everything in it all belong to the Lord your God. Yet the Lord chose your ancestors as the objects of his love, and he chose you, their descendants, above all other nations, as is evident today. Therefore, change your hearts and stop being stubborn. Because he had previously said, well, yeah, you all as a people group have been stubborn. So don't think that it's because you're faithful that God's giving you this promised land. But even after, Moses talks about all that rebellion, he's pretty much just trying to remind them and give further encouragement, like, okay, but just follow God. Believe in him. Follow his commands. You don't have to be stubborn like this. You could just follow God. That's all he really asks of you, is to just be loyal to him and obey his commands. Which, sounds so much simpler that way than breaking it down into a list of all the commands. Footnote there at Hearts. Hebrews says, circumcise the foreskin of your hearts, which gets more into the circumcision aspect of the covenant that Abraham made with God, or that God made with Abraham, that Abraham and God made way back when. But this is more like, okay, make sure that your hearts are physically, prepared and willing and ready to follow God. The physical stuff, while that's all well and good, that's not the most important thing. The important thing is that your hearts have this attitude of following God and keeping the covenant. Which is why we later get into stuff in the New Testament talking about, how it was faith that was the most important thing. That was why God chose Abraham and why that covenant was kept and all that kind of stuff. Not just because he did the physical things that were demanded of him, but because of the willingness and his heart as well. But anyway. Alright. Then we get to verse 17. For the Lord your God is the God of gods and Lord of lords. He is the great God, the mighty and awesome God, who shows no partiality and cannot be bribed. He ensures that orphans and widows receive justice. He shows love to the foreigners living among you and gives them food and clothing. So you too must show love to foreigners, for you yourselves were once foreigners in the lands of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and worship him and cling to him. Your oaths must be in his name alone. He alone is your God, the only one who is worthy of your praise, and the one who has done these mighty miracles that you have seen with your own eyes. When your ancestors went down into Egypt, there were only 70 of them. But now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. Maybe a bit of an exaggeration, because again, we've previously established that their numbers were probably somewhere in the realm of 2 million. But it's still absolutely massive compared to 70. So yeah, anyway. So further, Moses is further kind of digging into the idea of God's loyalty and faithfulness, and the fact that he is the only one worthy of their devotion, their worship, and really of just being followed in general. Like, God of gods, Lord of lords, that is kind of the, all right, God is mighty and powerful and, worthy of your worship, also to be feared. But then, like, where it says he shows no partiality and cannot be bribed is more, an attribution of the loyalty of God. Also that he cares about justice and, doing right by those who are most in need, as these people themselves were before, when they were slaves in Egypt. Because not only were they foreigners in Egypt, they eventually were slaves. So, because God delivered them out of Egypt, God expects, extra compassion to foreigners living among them, as well as others who are in need. Okay, so further continuation of the reminder of what happened at Mount Sinai with the golden calf and the 10 Commandments needing to be rewritten and all that kind of stuff. But then, Moses gets back into the whole, so God is basically doing all this good stuff to you for his own sake, not really for yours. And just, also trying to encourage them not only with staying loyal to God and faithful, but also with, not being worried about their enemies that they're going to encounter and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, guess that does it for this chapter. So, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. I realize it's not necessarily called subscribing if you're on Rumble. It's, I think, just following. But, whatever. Same kind of idea. Anywho. So, yeah. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.